Evening.
Good evening.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you, Madam President and Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a while since I've been at a Toastmasters event, and whatever you guys are smoking, I want a little bit of it. I know it's the beginning of the year. I know there's a lot of enthusiasm, but this is a hyper crowd, and there's a comedian at every corner. And as a speaker, you come in a little intimidated. Normally, you're the one who has to energize the crowd, and I'm feeling like, I'm normally a very extroverted person. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Even the people online seem to be pretty excited. Like, normally, those guys don't say much. They're clapping, they're smiling, they're laughing. So whatever you're smoking, Sri Lanka needs more of it. But it's a privilege, absolutely, to be here because I'm speaking of something that I'm very passionate about. I really believe without a vision, a nation perishes. Without a vision, organizations perish. Without a vision, individuals meander along for decades and finally end up in a mediocre reality and ask, what have I done with my life? It's too late. And so at a very young age, my passion is youth. I work with young people and young adults in Sri Lanka and across the world. Today we're working in 21 countries in 5 continents. And whenever I see a younger audience, I get very excited because it's value for money. If we can get them to be men and women of vision, men and women of character and integrity at a very young age, they can live a life that's fulfilling, not just for themselves and their families and their communities, but they can help transform nations. And hopefully some of that passion, some of the lessons I've learned along the way are helpful to you as you step into 2026 and in whatever aspirations you have in your career. And I really hope that there's something that you could take with you. So thank you once again for inviting me. So let's begin with the whole concept of what is a vision? Why is it important? Why should you pursue it? Why is it worth living for? And in some cases, why is it worth dying for? I got some of you scared and I was like, hey, give him some of what we're smoking. This guy's getting too serious, right? But the reality is a vision comes from a place of discomfort, a certain sense of pain or angst that's caused by the reality of where we live in. Something should be different. This is not fair. Or things could be better. Oh, we're stuck in mediocrity. We can be excellent. That feeling, that urge within you is hard to ignore. And it keeps on jabbing within your soul. At times, it's a mechanism that awakens your consciousness. Many times we go through life, we're numb to the realities of what's happening. We see pain, we see suffering, and sometimes we live in mediocrity. We're not anywhere close to excellence, but we've now been numb to it, saying, this is how it's always been done. Or anything different, or it's going to be too difficult. Or people won't be on board, so let me just submit to this reality of pain, suffering, mediocrity, or whatever it is, and let me be subservient to it and just survive day in and day out. But a vision is within all of that, fighting against that and saying no to mediocrity, no to apathy, no to selfish ambition alone, and saying there's something more to life. And it keeps at it. But what happens is as we grow older, we get better at shutting it down. Shut up. Know your place. Don't do too much. People will think that you have an ego the size of an elephant's head. So let's just mind my business. Maybe I won't speak up. Maybe I won't say something, because if I do, what many of us in Sri Lanka do is, then why don't you do it? Immediately it gets passed on. So maybe I shouldn't say anything. Or maybe people will say, okay, go ahead and do it. And I'm worried that people will wait till I fail. Wait till I fall flat on my face and then say, I told you. And those fears further fortify this vision speaking from within you and keep it trapped there for days, for months, for decades, and for some, unfortunately, a lifetime. And then it's a story of regret. I wish I lived up to that vision. I wish I took that first step. And many times the fear is you want a sense of clarity, or you need absolute perfection to be delivered to you, then you will take a step. Everything, a perfect blueprint, everything, a risk assessment done, risk is mitigated, and you feel no one's going to laugh at you, problems are not going to come your way, it's just going to be an easy step, then I'll step into it. Good luck, your vision will die with you. But those who have the courage to say, yes, my conscience has been awakened, there's something within me wants to live for something more than I do, and I want to take that first step. In scriptures, in Psalms 119, it says, thy word is a lamp unto my feet. And a lamp only provides enough light to take the first step. And then when you take that first step, you see, this is the next step. And then this is the next step. It doesn't say, thy word is floodlights to my life. Bang, you see the whole thing. Right? If you do see the whole thing, maybe you'll be overwhelmed that what's here, you're not ready for it, you're not strong enough for it, you're not confident enough for it, you're going to retreat and say, good riddance, I'm going to go back to my safe space. But just enough light to say, I just take that first step. In response to that discomfort you're feeling, say, what could be if we step up? So a vision begins in that pain, in that angst, but it doesn't end there. Once you have the courage to say, okay, I'll take that first step. I'll build myself up. I'll build the courage. But then you're almost always, you meet failure, rejection, sometimes mockery from people. Some people who were beautiful. There are brilliant speakers who are not good on stage, who can't speak to people, but they're very good to cut you down to your size. Or they have those few words, they'll just cut you down. And unfortunately, for those of us in South Asia, we have people with masters and PhDs in that. They'll cut you down to size. They know just a few words that bring you down. But you have to have the ability after you take that first step to resist even those difficult times and say, I will keep on marching on, one step after the other, because I believe this to be true. I believe things can be better. And when you are met, one of the most difficult things is when you feel the rejection. You say, oh, that's never going to happen. Or you can't do that. That's never happened before. What makes you think that could happen? Or this is how we've always done it. We're very traditional here, always done it. Yeah, we're always a failure, sir. We're always mediocre, sir. So maybe we should do something different. Because Einstein said, the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. So the quintessential man who is insane is a traditionalist. Does the same thing over and over again without looking, is there another way around this? Can we do it better? How do we build upon generations of success to take it to the next level? Can we achieve something greater? Can we live a life of more significance? It's not a journey for ego. It's something that's deep inside. You want it for betterment, for your community, for your society, for generations to come. Now that's the vision. But then once the initial rejections, the mockeries, and you yourself questioning yourself, vision is something that's so worth, it's worth fighting for. You believe in it. Not maybe entirely in yourself, but you believe in what could be. And therefore you keep stepping despite the obstacles that come your way. But then it comes to a point where you're so convinced that you have the ability to communicate it in a way where even the most cynical person pauses before they mock you out of the room. What if this guy really means what he's saying? What if this really happens? Maybe I'll end up being the joker for not believing in this. That's the moment you know you have a foot in the door. Even the most cynical person pauses before they run their mouth and talk down to that vision within your heart. That requires the ability to communicate in a way that persuades, in a way that awakens their conscience and their heart. Now that's a whole nother level of persuasion. You can awaken your own conscience. You can even take your first step. You can even take the next step after certain rejections and pains and mockery. But now to be in a place where you can awaken the conscience of another to see maybe possible. And the early adapters, the people who immediately, the first 2% of society were like, yeah, I think this is possible. Let's do it. Those guys are borderline crazy, but they're crazy with you. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. But you get them and you start then showing, hey, this is not just talk, this is not just an aspiration, this is not just initial success that's going to die off. Now here is our plan and a strategy of we're going to build on one building block upon another. And then you start encouraging those on the fringes and they're like, maybe another 10% your way. There will always be a 5 to 10% who will never join you in your journey, who will always be there waiting, saying, okay, it didn't fail today, but it'll fail tomorrow, or it'll fail in 5 years, or eventually this guy's going to mess up. So they wait for you. Let them wait, because your joy is them seeing you succeed collectively, and even their lives getting better from it. There have been some naysayers and some doubters who 15 years after have sat with me and said, son, I'm sorry I laughed you out of the room. There was one gentleman who came to my house and had breakfast with me. So I just came here to say, I remember 15 years ago, I laughed you out of the room and I said, you're wasting your life. And today I'm a beneficiary of what you guys are doing. So thank you. 15 years. But I still heard that echo of laughing for almost every day of those 15 years. Am I crazy? Is this worth it? But you don't go bitter or you don't grow numb. You see the potential even within the loudest of the naysayers, and you try to serve all. Because for those who have started with a vision after a while, they've gone through the initial difficult times, they've managed to convince some people, and they move along. But because of the pain, the rejection, the difficulties, they start becoming bitter people. They're becoming arrogant. Now it becomes about me. Vision is never about a person. It's about the greater collective. A vision is not about somebody who lives within the parameters of their selfish ambition. Let me explain that. This is something that I've really dove into over the years. Some of us can live our entire life within the parameters of my selfish ambition. This is what I live for. Numero uno for me. Myself, my goals, my wealth, my... After that, they find love and they find family. My wife, my family, my children. That's it. The circle is that, it's it. And after a while, it's just me, 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 me. Your vision is an ego, it's a self-centered initiative that's not really living up to what it could be. But true vision that's worth living for is you drawing that circle much larger than self and family. There was an old movie called 10,000 BC, and in that there's this elderly statesman talking to this young man and saying, son, there are some people who draw a circle around themselves. But there are some who draw a circle around their family. They are responsible for their family. They live for their family. They do what they can. But then there are some who draw a larger circle. They are for their extended family as well. Whether the local mama or the local, everybody's business, they take care of everybody. I got you. We all have one of those persons. And every time I say that, people smile because they immediately see that person in their family. They're for everybody. But that's it. But some draw a circle for their broader community. I have a pain. I see the pain of our people. I want to do something. I want to see things change. And some draw a circle for humanity. My life needs to mean something more than for myself. Gandhi talked about this. He said there are leaders who can just feel what's wrong in society. They just feel it inside. They know some things are wrong, some things can be different. There's a vision crying out. But the fact that they even feel it shows that they have a level of leadership. But then Gandhi says, but then there are the leaders who on the next stage, they actually have the capacity to verbalize it. They say it out. So that's just the second stage. But then he says at the third stage of you now act. What you felt, you spoke, now you act. And this is just a one-off act. But it's still much better than doing nothing. But then Gandhi says there's a fourth level of leadership. These are people who not just act, they now build a habit to respond consistently. It becomes a habit. But then he says there's a greater level of leader that's become part of their character. That's just who they are. They cannot help themselves, but live beyond the parameters. So what happens is, Gandhi says, but there is a greater leader, and that is leaders of destiny. They live their entire life beyond the parameters of self. Their whole life is about, how do I make it better? I'm a proud parent. I have 3 boys. I love them. But more and more I'm realizing I'm passionate about building a life, not just for my 3 boys, for their generation. They deserve better. They can have better, and we can do better by them. I can say, well, I'm giving them a marginally better life than my father gave me. That's not good enough. Society and technology and knowledge and opportunities have gone far more exponentially for me to just give them 1 step above what my father gave me. I have a responsibility, not just for them, but for their generation. How do we give something? Because you and I are not responsible for the country we inherited, but we are responsible for the country we leave behind. You know, it's very nice when you're young, you can tell all the older people, what have you done, uncle? What is happening? It's very, very nice narrative. As if when it comes to your shoes and you're saying goodbye, what will the look on the next generation be when they look at your face? You self-serving old man, you did it for yourself and you left. Or you built a generation. You did something. That's vision. And we all have it within us. It's part of our human creation within our heart. There's a desire that we're part of a community, we're part of a nation, we're part of a people, we're part of humanity. And what's calling within your heart today? And what's that first step? Yes, rejection will come. Yes, mockery will come. Yes, cutting words that just hurt you to the core will most certainly come your way. But are you willing to go the distance to see? Are you going to build your capacity to awaken the conscience of even your greatest naysayer and critic for them to see value? And is your actions going to live up to overcome their cynicism about you? These people are the real deal. They really care. When the cameras are on them and when they're not. When there's a press conference or they're not. When the pictures are taken, when some magazine covers you or not. Maybe, in fact, even more so when you're not. When no one's watching of significance, still they're there. They're serious about change. So I've been looking at men and women like this throughout history, leaders of destiny, people who had a vision, who stuck to it, and who enhanced humanity as a result of their service. These are the leaders of destiny. Like you may have heard and read about William Wilberforce, a man who led the abolishment of slavery from England. At the time, slavery was the most lucrative industry in the British Empire. But this young man at the age of 19-20 ran for office, came to Parliament and said, this is wrong. All men and women are created in the image of God. No one should be treated like this. And he fought, and everybody was, this is treason. This is our industry. We make money through this. The slaves themselves don't care. They seem to be fine with it. But he awakened the conscience of a nation and a world. And within his vision was, we have to end the brutal treatment of human beings this way. And within a lifetime, slavery was abolished. In the United Kingdom and world, very soon, human rights were built upon the success of the Wilberforce movement. We talk about Mandela's movement. These are people with a vision, even in the midst of being treated like subhuman, being imprisoned for almost 4 decades, coming out and still looking to put out an olive branch to your enemy and build a rainbow nation together. South Africa would have been a bloodbath. We would have seen white Caucasian people being killed all over the streets. But Mandela said no. Madiba said no to the nation and said we will build together. If he hadn't led that way, if he didn't have a vision of a rainbow nation working together, rebuilding the country, South Africa will still be a violent civil war and one of the most gruesome sights the world has ever seen. It was averted because one man had a vision that was greater than hatred and pain, that awoke the conscience of an entire nation. We've all heard of the suffragette movement. Those women who were treated substandard were not considered to be intelligent or capable of voting or running for office. This was not 500 years ago, by the way. This was 1918 in the United Kingdom. They said, no, we deserve the right to vote. We deserve the right to run for office. You may deny many of us education, but we have a vision that women will be treated as equal. Many of them were factory workers. Many of them didn't know how to read, didn't have expertise, but they cared for their society and they knew that they needed a place at the table. And they started the suffragette movement. And they awakened the conscience of a nation. In 1918, in the United Kingdom, they started voting for the first time. And today there is almost no nation in the world where women do not vote or do not have the right to run for office. A vision that goes beyond the parameters of even time and selfish ambition for generations to come. That may be what's whispering in your heart today that impacts generations to come. And I hope you'd listen and say, yes, I may not be the perfect person to carry this vision, but it is breaking my heart and soul to hide it, so let me take it out and step forward. There are so many issues in our world today. There are so many opportunities for our country to come out of mediocrity to excellence. And you may be the one that's paving a path of excellence, a path of justice, a path of healing, a path of true restoration and redemption for a nation that went from the turtle of the Indian Ocean to many referring to as the teardrop of the Indian Ocean. Whatever the difficulties are, I use this phrase, the phoenix rises out of the ashes. And we've had our share of ashes as a country, but you may be part of the phoenix generation, rising from the ashes, inspiring generations after you. We can do better. Our children deserve better. Our world deserves better. So my journey in what I've learned, I was in the United States. I received a scholarship. My parents couldn't afford to send me abroad. So my parents said, if you want to have a good higher education abroad, you better get a scholarship. And I worked hard. I got a full scholarship. I went to the States and I was studying economics and foreign policy. And one of the biggest, I had a heart for Sri Lanka. I said, I will never leave my country. But it's so luring to stay when you're there. I got a job in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. I was living the dream. I was like, oh, this is great stuff. You're in a place of influence. Like global decisions are happening. And I was there and I was young. And I was like, this is great. But the vision in me was saying, it's not for this country. We have our own. I don't believe God takes from the rich and gives, takes from the poor and gives the rich. From poor countries, you can't take people who have passion and a heart and talent. And if everybody's going there, those countries are getting richer and our people are getting poorer. So I remember saying, hey, I'm going back home. All my friends are, are you crazy? I said, no, it's something in me. We have to go. There are more gifted children than me in Sri Lanka. They're in the rural communities. I've met them in Vaunia, in Mullativ, and it's the only difference is I speak English and I went to school in Colombo and I was able to apply for a scholarship. That's the only difference. In fact, they're far better than me. They deserve a better chance. So I can just live for myself. My vision is, how do I pave the way for them? Because they will make us prouder. And I remember coming back. And I said, one of the biggest things that's destroying our country is this hatred across ethnic and religious lines. Nations that have flourished culturally, economically, socially, are nations that have a collective identity. But for some reason, Sri Lanka still doesn't have an inclusive Sri Lankan identity. Maybe during a cricket match, maybe, but nothing deep. Where being Sri Lankan is more important than your ethnic, your religious, your socioeconomic and all that, or even your school that you went to in Colombo. You still can't shake that off. Yeah, your school is great, but we as collective are greater. Why can't we celebrate that? I call it the elusive, inclusive Sri Lankan identity. Where the heck is it? India, despite all their challenges, have managed, yes, there are difficulties, but they've managed to create it. In a Hindu predominant nation, 3 of their biggest superstars in Bollywood are Muslim and multiple more. It's like Indian. The Americans have managed to do it. It's not a perfect country, but there is an American identity. We're American. And you don't know what sort of colored face it is, but we're American. You see that in Singapore. A guy who looks South Asian or East Asian or whatever, or even a white guy, says, I'm Singaporean. And they say it with so much pride. And like, where is this? If we can create an inclusive life. So we started that journey, Sri Lanka Unites. The war wasn't even over yet. We started bringing young people from across enemy lines. We engaged over 1 million youth in the last 15 years, from Mullaitivu to all 25 districts. I remember our first conference was just a few months well, first was before the end of the war, 2 years before the end of the war, and then the official first conference was a few months after the end of the war. And so we had 25 head prefects from 25 schools in one room from the 25 districts. So a guy from Mullaitivu is in the top bunk, a guy from Mathura is in the bottom bunk. He says, this terrorist might blow himself up, I don't want to be here. And the guy from the north is saying, I don't want to be with this racist. I said, racists meet terrorists. Have a great time together, you sign up. So these 500 student leaders living together and all the hatred. And what they realized is they grew up being taught to fear and hate the other. When we asked them, tell me about this other community, 9 out of 10 things they said were negative. Tamils and Singhs both. I said, great. Now, have you ever met somebody from that community? No. Then how do you know this to be so true? My grandfather told me, or I read it in the newspaper. Inherited prejudice. So real life experience can overcome inherited prejudice. One boy from Kalmuni, a Muslim boy, walked in, and some boys from Gaul had said, and called him a racial slur, called him a terrorist. And he said, I'm getting out of here, these are useless people. Finally, those fellows were hugging and crying together. I said, this is an interesting situation. They call these terrorists, what's going to happen here? But we saw a generation had the ability to overcome the inherited prejudice and live something greater. We saw a few years later, one boy, one of my favorite young leaders in Mullaitivu. He came in, his parents were part of the LTTE. He showed me, Anna, this is my first birthday. His birthday cake was the Elam map of Sri Lanka. His outfit was the LTTE uniform. 1 year old. He said, and he said, I hated Sinhalese. I wanted to kill. I was so angry because I lost so many friends during the last days of the war. I hate. And when my principal told me I had to go for this, I hated my principal also. But because I'm the head prefect, I had to come. He came there and said, I thought everybody would be monsters. But I found that there are people, gifted leaders on both sides, or Muslims and Sinhalese. Together we are greater, Anna. That's why I'm here. On top of that guy fell in love with a girl from Mathura at that conference. I said, hey, you're 18 years old, go back home. We don't want another civil war. Please. But they waited. Today they're both 26 years old and they're married and they're living in Mullaitivu. And they're doing entrepreneurship work. They're creating opportunities for businessmen in Mullaitivu and in Mathura. And I'm seeing there's a generation of extremely gifted people. They are not blamed for the curse that we've given them. But let's give them an opportunity to build something greater. And what started in Sri Lanka today, somebody called from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they said, hey, interesting what you guys are doing. Can we come to Sri Lanka and watch it? Because we need it in Congo. Young people are killing each other. I said, we don't have money to pay for your ticket from Congo. I don't even know where that is. And they said, we will come. I said, okay, we'll take care of you, come. A bunch of Congolese came to Sri Lanka. They traveled. They were watching our programs, how we were helping young people, interacting. We can do this. So next thing we know, we have a team of Sri Lankan young men and women flying to Congo, learning French on the way, trying to take our syllabus and help. And 250 young leaders from across Congo, the second largest country in Africa, this beautiful, ultra-wealthy country that's the second poorest in the world, started today 14,000 members in Congo Unites. And we had young people from Jaffna, from Colombo, going and helping these Congolese learn, how do you build bridges? A vision goes beyond your heart, persuading, and then it becomes not yours. It becomes a purpose for many. It becomes a why for many. And then from Congo to Uganda to Kenya. Today, we're in 21 countries, with staff in 21 countries, with headquarters here in Sri Lanka. From the pain of our own experience to being an opportunity to heal in multiple nations. But it's not easy. I remember, I'll conclude with these two stories of pain. Everybody said, now we need to register as Global Unites in the United States so we are better positioned to serve all these countries. I said, okay, I'll go. So I remember flying to the States. I had about 25 meetings with potential donors and organizations. I'm going, trying to be as convincing as I can, but everybody said no. Not even a maybe, it was just like a no. They couldn't understand a brown face trying to do an international initiative. What are you guys doing? You need some aid? I'll give you, go home. You know, it felt like that, right? And I had all my money gone. Personal savings, everything. I paid to the ticket, and I'm in New York City in Penn Station.
And I go to the train and I don't have enough money to pay for the train to go from where I am to my friend's house where I'm sleeping on his couch that night. And I said, okay, I guess I'm broke. So I'm sleeping with homeless guys in Penn Station. I said, what the heck am I thinking? Minding my business, I should stay in Sri Lanka. Here in Penn Station, it's bloody cold and I'm stuck here and there's nothing going to happen globally. One young intern from the US who had come here to work in Sri Lanka said, hey Prashant, how is the fundraising going? I'm excited, man. Global Unites, yeah. I was like, fundraising not going too well. He said, I want to make a donation. I said, oh, very good. Do you want to make it to the Western Union in Penn Station? He said, yes, just $50. I said, I'll take it. And I paid for the train ticket and went for my final meeting the next morning. That guy listened to me and says, I don't know, man. It's a worthy cause, but I just don't know if you guys have it to do it. I said, we know the pain of what it's like to grow in violence and war. We feel what these people are going through. Give us a shot. He said, what's your annual budget for the first year? He wrote the check and said, take it. Good luck. That was 10 years ago. Today, now we're working in the United States with black and white communities. We're working in the Netherlands with immigrants and communities there, in Germany, and now in these European countries, we are getting opportunities to get paid as an organization to work free in Afghanistan and Congo and Sri Lanka and elsewhere. There are painful moments that you might want to give up, but true vision knows it's not about you, knows it's greater than the pain, and persists over and over again. I believe Sri Lankans are some of the greatest people in the world, not like we're superior, but our hearts are beautiful. People will give the shirt off their back and say, I saw that. My guys from Sri Lanka who went to Congo, they gave all their clothes and came. These jokers, their bags were empty when they came. I said, what happened? I gave. They're poor people. No. I said, you're poor. No, they're poorer. I gave everything. I said, these guys are special. They are special. One of them has saved for months to buy a nice pair of shoes. He gave the shoes also. He came with the barter slippers on the flight. I said, you're embarrassing me. He said, but they don't have. Some beautiful thing about our people. We're a small country with large hearts. And we need to now let it explode with gratitude and goodness and graciousness to heal our own wounds and maybe wounds of our world. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you all.